recording. Great. So InDesign, like I said, it's same people to do Photoshop and Illustrator, so some of this is going to look familiar. I'm going to click on New File, and it's opened up on the other screen, but if I bring that across, there's some things that I've used recently, but you've got your presets at the top again, just like Photoshop and Illustrator. I'm going to select Print, and it shows you a few things, but I'm going to go to View All Presets, and I'm going to select A3, and I'm going to make sure it's Landscape for my portfolio, and then there's a few more details down here. So it's done the dimensions for me. If I scroll down, if I wanted to adjust the number of columns on a page, I could do the gutters. I'm going to change this now for the only reason of I don't like funny numbers that aren't nice whole numbers. It's not going to affect anything because I'm not going to have multiple gutters in this portfolio document. And then my margins. Your margins are that safe space around the edge of the page. We know what margins are, don't we? Yeah. And again, it's a funny measurement. I don't like it. It's probably 1/2 inch, that. And I don't want it this 12.7, so I'm going to adjust that. I could have it as 10 millimeters, 1 centimeter, but you can see when I move one, they all move. And that's because they are linked. So I could change that so I could have a bigger margin at the top or the bottom. And you can say it's saying inside and outside, and that's because of this tick box, facing pages. That's if you're doing any kind of booklet. I'm not. I want separate pages, so I'm going to untick facing pages on this one. But if I was doing a booklet, a magazine spread, something like that, I would leave that ticked, but I'm unticking it. Margins, 1 centimeter. I think that would be my absolute minimum. I could go bigger for this portfolio, but I am going to leave it. If I carried on scrolling down, I've got something called bleed and slug. So strange terms. Bleed, hopefully we know what bleed is, that extra bit to your design, but slug, it's stuff that the designers and the printers might want to add and see, but it won't be printed. It's even more space. I guess it's like extra bleed. So all of that's done. I'm going to leave those as 0 because this is something I'm going to be producing to be viewed on screen rather than printed out. So I'm going to have 0 bleed, 0 slug, and create. So there's my blank document. Okay, and then if I want a cover page and I want my name on there, I've already got my text tool, my type tool selected. I can click and drag a box and I can type something in. So I'm going to type my name in, and it's teeny weeny. So just like you would in any other bit of Adobe software, I'm going to change some things for this font. First, I'm just going to make it a lot bigger. All right, so I've just clicked and selected 60, and I don't want that font. What you could do is have a font that you've selected, produced yourself. You might have hand drawn this thing, you might have created it digitally, but you're going to create a font. So let me pick something that looks kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting in a way, I guess. Really chunky there. And maybe, why is it not keeping up with me? Let's just pick that. So I've got a font, I've got a size. Now, there's options under this character part of my properties panel. One of those options is the size. To the right of size is leading. Now, if I had more text, if I just put another line of text underneath and select everything, I've just pressed Control A to select all. If I change this number, if it's smaller than the size, it will start to overlap. If it is much bigger than that size, so I'm going to put 120 in, it will give you much more space in between your text. So you can pick the amount you want if you have multiple lines of text. In this instance, we won't, because I'm just going to delete that. I'm pressing Control A again to select all. The next row of options, we've got your kerning. Now, most of it's greyed out because that applies when you're focusing between two characters. But something that isn't greyed out is optical. If you click that but watch your text, you will see it slightly shuffles. And so InDesign is trying to make it look nicer. It's trying to optically make the spaces between all of your letters even. So that's this option underneath the text size. And that's my default. I always have it on optical because depending on the font, depending on the size, the spacing can be uneven if it's set to metric, as in by the numbers. So I set it to optical. And then it might be as part of your branding, you want your text really spread out. That's the next option, the tracking. Or you might want it really squished together by using a minus number. But I'm going to leave it on 0. So that's it. I've got some text on the page. I can change the font, change the size, change the leading, change the tracking and the kerning. And there's some other details lower down, but let's try something else. Now, I'm going to switch to the Move tool, or the Selection tool, sorry. Let's use the Illustrator terms as well. Selection tool, so I can move this text box. If I wanted this to be lower down, I can have it lower down. I can have it at the top of the page, wherever. But if I look at my character panel and go underneath it, it's because I was resting over that option. Let's set that back to, it's done all kinds of things to it. Because I must have been scrolling over the top of some of these boxes. Right, I've set that back to how it was. If I scroll down, I've got more options underneath. Now, if you can't see all of these options, then you can click on these spots and it will close up the menu. Or, in this case, if you can only see a bit and you click on the spots, it will show you the rest of your options. I'm going to go to paragraph. There's some basic options there. If I click on the spots, I get even more. So, first job, I want it centered. Also, I just kind of randomly drew it there. So I'm going to drag it to my guides. And if I go up, I can see my measurements and I can see the X and Y position. So that is how high up and down the page I am. So I can set that to be a number. And the height of the text box, I could set that to be a number. And that's how I can ensure my layout looks precise, but also to be consistent. Because if this is going to become a PDF and you're flipping through it, you don't want it to appear like stuff is moving around and dancing on the page as you scroll through the multiple pages. So we've got a text box on the page. Let's get some more pages. I click on Pages at the top, and I can take one of these things and click and drag it down, or I can just click on the plus at the bottom, Create New Page, click, and it adds a new blank page. And that's what you can fill up with your work for your portfolio. So in this case, maybe we want a set layout for that slide that will go at the start of every project. So let's set that up. I'm going to have that same kind of text box. I'm just going to double click on another page and paste in. So that's gone almost to where I want it, because you can see the numbers are different because I just did a Control C to copy, Control V to paste. If I undo, if I do a Control, Alt, Shift and V, it pastes exactly where I took it from on the other page. So those measurements are as I had it. So 10 millimeters in from the left, 160 millimeters down from the top, and then the dimensions 400 mil wide, 40 millimeters high. So that's all the keys. Control, Shift, Alt and V to paste in place is what it's called. You can do an edit, paste in place, and that's the shortcut that you can see there. So we're just setting up a template. So I'm going to retype over that project name. And then I'm going to copy that text box, paste it in, but then I'm manually dragging it down to a position, and I'm going to resize that to be smaller, and I'll call it project description. Okay, and so I'll be able to type the name in there and the description, and that's the information I need. Now, if I had something else, I'm just going to temporarily draw a shape. So this, I'm going to make sure it's a nice size. So I'm going to make it 60 by 60. And I'm going to just give it a fill color there. All right, so I've changed the dimensions there. And I've changed the color using that swatch. I could use the swatch at the bottom of the toolbar, click on it, and you pick the color you want. But I just clicked on here and picked one of the pre-existing swatches. This could be the logo that always features on my project sub-page, subheading page, whatever you want. So if this is your logo, this is your project name, project description, I've got everything I want. All right, so I'm going to go to pages. And do you see these little lines at the top? I'm going to click on there, and I want to have, it's called this parent, a new master page. And I'm going to give that a name. Instead of calling it parent, I'm going to say title page. Oop. And everything's the same. It's still A3, all the details, okay. I can't see it, but if I grab this and drag it down, can you see that new thing's appeared there? It says title page, that's what I've created. So I clicked on the line and clicked on new parent to do that. So I'm going to select that, hold shift, and that text box, and that text box, and I'm going to cut it. Control X to cut. And I'm going to double click on my new title page master. And I'm going to do that same shortcut, Control Shift Alt V. That now is a master that if I click and drag that down into here, it adds a new master page that I can use and customize. Now at the moment it's locked because it's just stuck to that. So we'll need to click on that override. It's a bit fiddly. So let me just undo so you saw that. Right click, override all parent page items. That just means now have it editable. So I can click in and change this to be book, and this to be, come on, short description, a short description of this project. Okay. So at the moment we've got lots of green lines that might be distracting you. I can click on View, Extras, and Hide Frame Edges. And that's going to turn off some of those blue boxes. I could also click on View, Extras. Oh no, it's Grids and Guides, hide the guides, because that's the stuff around the edge. So that's more like what your page will look like.